know that people are still coming in the virtual room, and we've also got a lot of viewers already joining us on Facebook. Facebook is working with us today, so we're super happy about that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Liz Marion, the Digital Community Manager here at Bunker Labs for Launch Lab Online, and today I am so happy to introduce our Tampa City leader, Valerie Lavin, who's going to be joining us and leading this conversation with our town hall guest, Hal Perdew. So Val, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you take it from here. And if anybody has questions, drop them in the Q&A box. If you're watching on Facebook, you can just drop them in the Facebook comments or chat, and we'll be sure to pull those over for our live Q&A portion. All right, Val, go for it.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, everybody. Valerie from Tampa. I am super stoked to introduce to you today's amazing entrepreneur, Hal Perdew. I've had an opportunity to talk to him a couple of times. He's even volunteered to help with different events that I put on here in Tampa. I was on the Medal of Honor Convention Committee, and he volunteered his time. So he's very generous with his off time, and today he's going to be very generous with his knowledge and his experience and his journey. So Hal, thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Valerie.
All the way from Sarasota, Florida.
As you can see, it's pretty sunny outside.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the heat. So why don't you start by introducing yourself a little bit and sharing with our audience a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. My name's Hal Perdew. I live in Sarasota, Florida. Got a wife and a 16-year-old son. We love it down here. Trying to get through this crazy time. A little bit obviously unprecedented, but I really started my entrepreneurial time when I got out of the military. I went to the Naval Academy, flew briefly for the Navy, got out in 94, 95, and had no idea what I didn't know about the real world, and was fortunate enough to fall into a startup company back then, and it, I think I made $24,000 a year. Was my starting salary, if you will. But I got stock options, and they turned out to be completely worthless, which is something to learn as an entrepreneur, that you want to make sure you're getting involved in something that you think is going to be fantastic. But learned a ton of experience there. Was there for about 4 years, and the crazy idea of what you can actually see what we're doing right now is video conferencing systems. So we're doing it for free, and we were selling these systems for about $500,000 a piece. So kind of a crazy little business, but learned a ton. Ended up going to business school at UCLA after that, got my MBA. While I was there, did some venture capital work. When I graduated out of there, did a couple of startups where I was kind of just not really a founder, just kind of either in marketing or in operations doing working or finance. And then ended up getting involved with public storage. I went back to kind of a big business. If you don't know public storage, they're the largest self-storage company in the world. And so got involved with, for what was me, a pretty big business. I think they had maybe 15,000 employees, something like that. So pretty sizable company. Not the biggest, obviously, but for someone who'd been in small companies, it was a big company.
Good job.
Realized pretty quickly that I liked the space, but I didn't like the big business. Found that I spent most of my time helping my people get their job done while I could deflect all the pain coming from above. If you've been in a big business, you probably felt some of that yourself. So decided to go out on my own, went to another small company that was growing quickly, COO, CFO for a company that did light manufacturing. Kind of took that from about 20 people to 180 people in 2 years. It was a lot of fun. I had to raise debt and equity, VCs, and a lot of different structures to get where we were going. And then along the way there, decided to get back into the storage business, so raised about $100 million through limited partnerships to go out and develop self-storage. Built a couple of self-storage facilities, and then got involved with 2 other entrepreneurial businesses along the way, and actually now involved with another one. So it sounds like a bunch of disparate experiences, and they are, except there's a lot of commonality in building a business, and that's where I really find my passion. My entrepreneurial passion is in growing a team, putting culture in place, processes, procedures, and building foundations for growth.
Awesome. Well, when you, I know last time we saw each other, we met briefly in St. Pete. You were looking for property in St. Pete for another storage unit. So you let me know when it's ready to rent out, because I need one. So the company culture that you were kind of describing about, kind of providing top cover for the people that work for you, is a lot of entrepreneurs kind of step away from that and start their own business. But even before that, what are some of the strengths that you think veterans have that they may not know that they have that would make really good entrepreneurs, that make them really good entrepreneurs?
You bet. One of my mentors is my older brother, Callie. So I'm going to steal some of his language here. He's a venture capitalist that now invests. He tries to do about 50% of investment in vet-led companies. And it's one of the things he says is, if you look across all organizations, including the military, public sector, private sector, the only organization that he's aware of, that I'm aware of, that teaches leadership as an actual curriculum is the military. And that encompasses a huge number of traits. It's grit, it's character, it's determination, stick-to-itiveness, whatever you want to call that. The military folks have that. They build teams, they understand culture. They understand how to take care of each other. And that's something that you don't necessarily get in a large organization that you would get out of the military. And so I think those are some fantastic traits, and they've served me well. And when I look at other vets, they're entrepreneurs, oftentimes those are the key things that help make them very successful.
Awesome. So when people are trying to evaluate or explore, their entrepreneurial tendencies or ideations, they're always talking about, or they're always told, like, follow your passion. You've got to be passionate about your business. But are you passionate about storage units? I mean, like, how does passion translate into, your business now? Or is
I
it
absolutely am. It's not necessarily the storage unit itself, right? It's building that rapport with the customers. Specifically storage, the driver for storage is change, right? So it's a wedding, a divorce, a birth, a death. It's a moving from somewhere to somewhere else. And change makes most people nervous. So you've got to have a team that has empathy. You have to have a team that understands, because when someone's coming in, they're going through something. They didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I need a storage unit, right? Something's happening in their lives. And so building a team that understands our core values, and understands that, we're passionate about people first and foremost, doing the right thing, continually improving, those types of core values that we build. That's one of the things I recommend for every entrepreneur. If you're building a business, is to understand what your core values are and put them on paper, put them on the wall, and make sure that everyone that joins your team shares those values. So yes, am I passionate about building teams? I absolutely am. That's the commonality across all those different businesses I've been involved with, is building those teams and getting the team to really function at a high level. That's my passion.
So with that, then how do you handle the adversity and the doubt when you're starting to build a team for a startup?
Interesting. So I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. So, that perseverance and grit that we talk about, I don't know if the doubt rarely comes from inside me. Obviously, I have doubts about maybe a specific issue, but I never doubt my core values. I don't doubt the people I work with. Frankly, I hire and fire for core values. Everything else can be trained. And so it's one of those, I'm sure, as first sergeant, you did a lot of, training up, right?
Right.
And you do that. And that's about skill sets, not core values. And so if you've got people on your team that share the same core values you do, you can work through adversity. You can work through doubts. You can work through other people doubting, as long as you've got that commonality.
So I'm just going to break here for a minute. I am on the 14th floor of our WeWork office. Can everybody see this? Oh, they can't see it. There is like this little bird that keeps running into the window on the 14th floor. But anyway, thank you for that answer. So one of your expertise is like finance and raising capital. In my experience with early stage entrepreneurs, generally the first question they'll ask me is, how do I get money? What is your advice on that? Is it so important to run out and get a loan or raise money, or is bootstrapping a better option?
There's a lot there. First, let me say I'm not an expert at anything. Continually learning every single day, getting better, hopefully learning from everybody around me. But I have had some success raising capital in many different ways, everything from bootstrapping to hardcore VC to kind of more senior senior debt type of structure. I would suggest that depending on the business, the number one thing an entrepreneur or someone who's starting up a brand new idea can do is get in front of customers. Get out there and sell. And they're going to tell you what you're going to need. And what I mean by, and a lot of times what I mean by that is I wouldn't quit my job and start until I had sales, right? So finance is the hardest part. I probably wouldn't take loans out unless I had the, I call sources and uses, so loan is a source of funds, unless I had a use for the funds. I wouldn't just take a $50,000 line of credit on my house to start a business. If I had an order for $50,000 worth of goods, I would take the loan out, sell it, and then pay the loan off, and then keep moving with the profit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So getting in front of customers, getting sales, doing the bootstrapping, creating that cash flow is absolutely critical. Cash is king when it comes to a startup.
Yeah, so Dr. Russ Barnes, he's an Air Force veteran. He is one of my partners in entrepreneurship education through Action Zone here in Tampa. And he always says, like, you don't have a business until you've made your first sale.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah, you might have an idea, you have a concept, but if no one's buying it, then maybe we need to massage the business model a little bit. So that's awesome advice.
I mean, one of the things along those lines is a lot of people think, oh, I've got this, whether it's a hard product or a service, well, people just don't get it. When I hear an entrepreneur say that the customer just doesn't get it, the entrepreneur is not listening to the customers. The customer's going to tell you what your product needs to be. I'm sure you've gone through that, right? As you've created your individualized, kind of first aid kits, not for lack of a better word, but as you're doing that, your customers are telling you what they want. Is that a fair statement?
Right. And for the audience, what Hals referring to is my company, Luminary Global. We provide emergency product solutions, and that might be a first aid kit, but we also do customize those kits. So that's what he's referring to. And we listen to our customers, and the goal is by listening to the customers and customizing for them, then we can eventually start our own product line, right, using the products that we've customized. So there's a little bit of strategy there for sure. So for the advice for the inexperienced entrepreneur from an experienced entrepreneur is, how do you manage cash flow when money is so tight? And because we're making these sales finally, we're bringing in some revenue, and young entrepreneurs, early stage, we're constantly feeding that money back into the company. But how do you manage that on a tight budget? And then beyond that, how do they start planning to pay themselves? Because I know entrepreneurs that have been in business for 3+ years and they still have not taken a paycheck. That's
no good. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. Managing cash is absolutely critical. At the company that was it was the back end for online photo finishers, took it from 20 people to 180 people in 2 years. That kind of growth just absorbs cash. It's incredibly difficult. Every single week, I looked at every single receivable and every single payable, and we managed it super tight. So that's a very tactical answer to your question, is watch every single penny, okay? On a more kind of strategic level, you really want to not be frivolous. You want to be wise about where you're looking to spend your money. If the option is, going and getting an office or working out of your house, work out of your house. If it's, be penny wise. Don't be pound foolish, but be penny wise. Be penny wise and pound wise. You want to do both. And so don't let the pennies fall through the cracks. It can hurt you. But don't, if the customer says, hey, we want different packaging, you need to spend some money to make that happen, get an order from them. So manage and partner with your customers and partner with your vendors in a way that if you get into a situation where you have, receivables coming in and the payables are due, you talk to your vendor, you call and say, hey, look, I've got receivables coming in 2 weeks. Instead of, paying you now, I'm going to pay you in 2 weeks, and I'll give you another order. Or work with your vendors, and your customers are partners of yours. It's not a lot of people that I've seen that don't do this well look at their customers as on this pedestal that they can't talk to, and there's a line between them. Obviously, you don't want to show like complete lack of professionalism. You need to be professional about it, but they're in it with you. They've bought into your concept. They've bought into who you are. And they want to be part of your team, both your vendors and your customers. So on a more strategic level, think about that kind of continuum a little differently than some entrepreneurs, not as transactional, a lot more interactive, and then really, really watch your pennies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, to your point in talking to the vendors is that I think as a society, like we have a bill, we pay the bill, right? And as responsible, veterans, we had a bill, we paid that bill. Where when you're an entrepreneur, if you talk to the vendors, like they want to keep your business, right? Yeah. So having open communication with them so that they understand, the money's coming. They want that long-term relationship. So they may wait 30, 45 days for that invoice to be paid.
And they understand the process too, especially on the product side. They understand that there's a lead time to get things manufactured. And typically, customers pay net 30 or some version thereof. And so they understand that timeline. If you can talk with your vendors and share where you are and be relatively transparent, in fact, the more transparent, the better, you'll find that you get partners that way.
Well, and to talking about partners, even right now with my business, trying to get PPE for various customers. One of our customers is the Florida Department of Veteran Affairs, and they are not the PPE industry. Everybody wants either 100% payment up front or 50% payment up front, but they're mandated that they can't do that. So talking to our suppliers, say, hey, we have a customer, FDBA. They are not permitted to pay up front. Will you accept, a 30-day delay in their payment? So communication is definitely key. And to tag on to that partnership or collaboration topic, how important is collaborative partnership with whoever important for building your business when it comes to not only just financing, but just the scaling of your business?
It's incredibly important. There's different kinds of partners, and the sooner you can make your vendors your partners, the better you're going to be from the cash flow perspective. And a really good example of that is attorneys and accountants. A lot of people get the bill from the attorney accountant, they just pay it. Well, I'm starting a new business now that we're in the process of founding and we're growing. And I talk to the attorneys, and we need attorneys. It deals with a lot of environmental issues, so we need environmental attorneys to help for regulatory issues. And we talked to them up front and said, hey, here's where we are. And they gave us a plan and said, okay, we'll defer 30% of the payment until 12 months from now, but you're going to have to pay it, right? So, but they were able to do that to help us manage cash flow in the meantime. But it was the transparency and being vulnerable, if you will, and sharing where we were. And they got it. They get it. A lot of times attorneys and accountants just plan to write off 30 to 40% of their business anyway, which is crazy to me, but they do. And something that entrepreneurs don't know. A lot of times they pay that attorney bill as soon as it shows up. That's insane. Hold on to that cash for 30 days at least, and then talk to them about it ahead of time, right? You'll be surprised the kind of partnerships you can build that help everybody, because they want your business. And because they know attorneys, if you work with them and they have a good experience, you stay with them for years. And so they're willing to invest early to reap the benefits on the back end.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say my attorney is a six-figure salary employee for my company. So we have a very good relationship with my attorney. We have a couple of questions from the audience. First one is, and I think you kind of touched on this, do you add in an expected percentage of loss in your business when starting?
From a bad debt perspective, it depends on the business. So self-storage, yes. I know there's a certain percentage I'm going to lose. It's not very high, but it's built into my pro forma. In the new business I'm starting, no, because our customers are going to be municipalities. I know they pay. So it's really understanding your customer base is how I would. I hate to answer a question. It depends, but it depends on the industry and the business and who your customers are. But it is wise to think about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where customer discovery and industry research really come into play and are very important pre-launch of your business, really knowing the finances of that business. Another question, during COVID, a lot of companies are thinking about partnerships more. What do you think what do you look for in a strategic partnership When should you be wary of partnering with an organization, and what are the right reasons to partner? There's a lot there.
That is a lot. So I would bring it back to core values and culture. And for me, I've been asked to, how do you hire? All those kinds of questions end up coming back to culture. If you have aligned goals, and understanding where your goals are aligned and understanding where they aren't. So building a good strategic partnership requires communication, transparency. You're going to get the same answer kind of over and over to a lot of these questions. It's transparency, communication, and core value alignment and goal alignment. So you may have the same core values but different goals. And then you just really need to understand it and talk through it and make sure that it makes sense. It's a little bit of a generic question or a hypothetical question, but that's kind of how I would look at that kind of a question.
Right. And what recommendations do you have for businesses that started right at the start of COVID?
I think even more now than before, clear communication and transparency. I know it sounds like a broken record here, but in tough times, they say character is revealed, right? And it's all, some people say tough times build character. I tend to think that character is revealed. And so during these times of tougher communication, media, not being able to meet in person, being able to be as communicative as possible and straightforward, sincere, honest, with integrity, the kind of things we all like to do and like to be the way we like to be treated. Those are the kind of things that make sense. If it's more tactical question, if you're a retail operation, ouch, it's a tough time. Talk to your if you're trying to ameliorate rent, talk to your landlords, they get it. Talk to your vendors and say, hey, I've got this inventory, will you take it back? Or whatever you can do to kind of help create cash flow. That's a kind of, again, a very generic question, if you will. It's going to be kind of industry specific. But I think the high level, those types of things are going to help you work through it.
Great point. One of the things that I tell entrepreneurs, through this crisis when they ask is take the time to really look at your processes and your infrastructure. Because a lot of times early stage entrepreneurs, they overlook those because it's like balls to the wall, head down, trying to make money, and some of those processes get lost. That's really good advice. How is a self-storage business doing in light of COVID and all of the accompanying turmoil and uncertainty? And any other businesses you think will thrive as we move forward into the new normal?
So storage business, generally speaking, is a micro market business. So it's a 10-minute drive time type business. So I think nationwide, if you want to look at those metrics, the storage business is up, but it's also that time of year. It's our lease up season, kind of second and third quarter when our occupancies rise, generally speaking. My facilities are doing pretty darn well right now. I'm pretty happy about it. It's been tough with the team because we've been actually having them work from home and just be available on call. So they carry a phone so because they live relatively close to the facility, and customers have really been understanding. So it's been good from that perspective. I guess at a higher level, what industries do I think are going to come out of this well? I think you're going to see, my personal opinion, you're going to see some manufacturing things do well. I think we're going to start onshoring some manufacturing that we had offshore, not just from COVID, but also from some relationships with China and some of the other countries where we're having some economic spats, if you will. And then, I think that some industries that aren't necessarily going to have some questions are you're going to look at commercial real estate, specifically around office. I think industrial and warehousing and manufacturing are pretty good sectors. But again, that's just my take on it.
Right. So what type of, in light of what's going on now, or even before, it doesn't matter which direction you take the question is, what type of market research should the aspiring entrepreneur think about doing before they launch?
A lot. If you're doing a local, I'll take for example for me a storage facility. Before I either buy or build a storage facility, I've visited every single storage facility in that market. I understand kind of what the rates are like. I understand what the promotions are like. I understand In that market, I won't go 10 minutes. I'll do a 30-minute drive time all the way around. It's like I can understand who the competitors are, how well funded they are, if I can compete from a financial perspective, or do I have to have a service offering. So in that kind of specific example, it's at least 5 days of driving around, and I've been in that industry for 20 years, right? So it's one where I understand the high-level metrics. It's getting into the micro, the micro data, if you will. That's the minutia, getting into that. If you want to open a food truck, I would understand, all the different restaurants in the area, the different food trucks in the area. I'd go try them, talk to them, talk to the owners, see what's happening. Might find a partner. You might, someone who is wants to, they only want to do the truck 3 days a week. Maybe you could pick that up. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are beneficial that come from getting out and walking the walk.
All right. We have another question from the audience. Are you preparing for exodus of dense cities, specifically in the storage industry?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you repeat that?
Are you preparing for exodus, meaning like, are you preparing to shut down or pull out of the dense cities, specifically in the storage industry? I'm thinking that's what the question is asking. I'm not sure I've actually ever thought of a mass exodus out of those cities, dense cities. It makes sense if people are trying to move. I'm living in Florida, and it's mostly on the rural side. I'm on the West Coast. I'm not on the kind of, New York, New Jersey side of Florida. And so we're in relatively urban areas. I think we're the ones that are going to, quote, benefit, unquote, from that exodus, if you will. So the way I would prepare is I'm looking to build more facilities right now. I'm looking to acquire more facilities. So from that perspective, I guess I am. I don't know if that answered the question. All right, I think so. Can you speak to developing talent in your company and how it relates to what you said about veterans knowing how to take care of each other? How do you build a culture with employees where employees are able to develop their skills, grow themselves, even if that means they'll leave the company?
That's a fantastic question, and it's my goal in every organization is to help people get where they want to go. In fact, every person I've interviewed, I've probably hired 1,800 to 2,000 people in my career, and every single one of them get two questions. The first question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, and the answer to that doesn't matter except the second question, how can working here help you get there? And so how do I develop talent that way? It's a culture of openness. I don't do performance reviews. I actually do catalytic coaching, plug in Gary Markle there. And it's a process whereby your teammate tells you where they want to get and what they've done for the company, what they've done for themselves. And then they set goals for themselves. And you evaluate on a quarterly basis, and I puts aside a budget for people to help develop themselves. Additionally, company-wide, we read a book as a company, in my organizations every month or month and a half, depending on the size of the book. And they're all, and we actually together kind of pick the books. And so it's an opportunity for us to continue to grow, and we talk through it. So we devote time and money and to helping people develop. And I believe that's the only way to actually really make that happen.
That's very interesting. Be interested in seeing your suggested reading list. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So with that said, do you recommend hiring contractors early on and then transitioning, or how do you lead and groom them as well?
It depends on the business. I prefer, it depends on what you're looking for. If it's a transactional item, like say a website, I don't want a full-time web designer on my team unless I develop websites, right? So that's, if it's core to what we're trying to accomplish, I want to own it. If it's tangential, I'd rather rent it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. This question is from one of the audience members. Can you provide the reference to the model used for reviews of goal of individual use, or what you plugged? Yeah.
Yeah, the one I like is Catalytic Coaching, is what it's called. Gary Markle's the guy who wrote it or developed it. I've used it in 3 different organizations where I've rolled it out. It has been so much better than a performance review. People are interactive, involved with it, and it's easy. It's 3 sheets of paper. 2 the employee does, if you will, and 1 I do. But it requires time and energy, and it requires really thinking about the team members figuring out what they want to do and how they're helping the company. And so it's really easy through that process. People go to performance reviews, go blah, 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 what's my raise, right? This is, if you want more money, here's how you add value and you'll get a piece of that, which is a very entrepreneurial thing, right? You're helping people develop themselves to where they want to go. I've had everything, I'll share something. The best answer I've ever had to those two questions, by the way, hands down, bar none. A woman came in and interviewed with me, and I asked, we had a great interview, and the first question, what do you want to be when you grow up? She goes, I want to be a goat cheese farmer in Vermont. I was like, that's specific. That's the most specific answer I've ever heard to that question. I said,
what?
Goat cheese farmer. You heard me right.
Oh.
A goat in Vermont. And I'm like, how can working here help you do that? She goes, well, my husband has a job he's going to be able to retire from in 2 years. I know that working here, I'll get good benefits, and for 2 years, I'll be able to make enough money for us to get the down payment on the place we're looking at. Unbelievably specific, right? Further, I know you got your MBA from UCLA, and I've talked to a bunch of people that work here. They say you like to help develop. I'd really love to get some help on the entrepreneurial side, learning what it's going to take for me to finance this. Do you think she was hired?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and 2 years later, she left and bought a cheese farm in Vermont. It was phenomenal. She was the best employee I've ever had. But that's the unbelievable self-awareness, great answer to the question. She knew what she wanted, and that was impressive.
So with that professional development, I personally have never worked corporate. When I retired from the Army, I went to work for a very short time for a veteran-owned business who didn't even bother looking at my resume. They're like, you're a retired first sergeant. I know what I'm getting. And then, I worked there maybe 4 months, and I realized that I was entrepreneurial and I needed to start my own business. Do you think that your position or, your perspective of developing employees, and again, I don't know, is that the same in corporate, or is it because you are a leader in the military?
I think it's the values I learned in the military lead that charge, I think. It's something that I believe in. We were trained to, leaders eat last. I mean, there's a number of things you can say, right? And it's just about making sure that your team can carry you. And frankly, it's better for me if my team's better, right? It's one of those, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room for sure. I want to make sure that the people around me know what they're doing, are happy, are excited about it. They're going to bring so much more to the table. I got very lucky, but a really good example when I built a couple of storage facilities down here in Northport, and I was out before they were in construction, not yet open, and I was going from place to place, kind of checking them all out. And I had gotten further away; it was outside the competitive market zone for sure. But I walked into a facility, I started talking with the manager that was there. She was just this dynamic woman, and so 30 minutes in the conversation, I said, "Would you come work for me?" And she says, when? I said, about 6 months. She was done. And so she came on board, and she ran our facilities for 10 years. And along the way, she came to me and she said, I want to go be president of the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, that's awesome. She goes, does it mean I'm going to be out of the buildings a lot? I said, that's awesome. Go do it. And so we hired more staff to backfill for her, and she managed them well. But she did that. I went from going to those facilities every day for the first, 3 or 4 months. I bet I didn't go to the facilities the last 6 months. And she now is a city commissioner in Northport. So she's a dynamic woman, but giving her the platform from which to operate, it paid dividends for me, her, and the company. It was a win-win-win, truly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's admirable.
She's a rock star.
Well, maybe
I'm not going to take any credit for that on my side, for sure. I won't take any credit for that. She's a dynamic person. I just gave her a platform from which to operate.
Yeah. Well, I was saying I'd come work for you, but probably not. I like having my own company.
I'll come work for you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you're, talking about, again, the professional development, and then I call it, counseling. We would say in the Army, but I know of civilian friends that get fired, and they're like, I have no idea why I got fired. Like, there's no communication from their boss, no, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly performance report. So that's awesome.
Communication happens on a daily basis, right? That's, I mean, if you don't know why you're fired, that's just terrible.
Right.
Everyone that I've fired has been very aware of what happened.
Yeah, for sure. So we got two more questions. Would love to learn more about breaking into the self-storage business, pun intended. Where is a good place to start? And I'll save the next one for after.
So I'd be happy to share my experiences offline if somebody wants to reach out to me. Are you sharing my contact info, my email?
We can.
If you'd like to, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk through it. It's a longer conversation than I can probably answer right now.
Okay. Can you talk about exploring different interests as an entrepreneur? Why haven't you stayed in the same industry since it brought success for you? That's a good question.
So I've stayed in the storage industry. The other one's opportunistic. One was a bad decision. I had a bad partner, so I sold out of that business very quickly. But it's there for 2 years and took it from $1 million in rev to 17 million in revenue, and then was able to sell my shares back and get out of it successfully. So I was happy with it, but it was not the right core values. It was not the right team. But I keep my eyes and ears open, and I find something that I find interesting. Either a good partner or a good industry or a good opportunity, and it needs my passion and my skill sets around structure. I'm certainly less industry based than most people, but I think my skill sets are useful in almost every industry.
That's awesome. Well, I think that is all the questions from the audience. I think Lynn's going to come back. Thank you so much, Hal. I really enjoyed getting you even more. And yeah, Liz is going to come back and say a few words, but it's been great. I mean, we've had lunch and cocktails a couple of times, but this is even more of an opportunity to get to know you better, and I really appreciate that.
Pleasure was mine. I love doing this kind of stuff, so thank you.
Thank you both so much. Hal, I am actually just going to ask you this last question since we had somebody just get one more in. Can you talk about avoiding a bad partnership?
So it'll go back to some advice I got early on, and it's hard to do. It's hire slow and fire fast. And that works in a lot of ways in life, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, or whether it's a partner in a business, which are very similar creatures, by the way. Get to know the people you're working with and make sure the core values are the same. Oftentimes you think they are until the rubber meets the road and then they go sideways on you, or you go sideways on them, or depending on perspective. But it's really about understanding where you are as best you can and then making the best decision you can. But once you know it's not right, get out. It's not going to get any better, has been my experience.
Yeah, because breaking the business partner is far more painful than breaking up with a girlfriend or boyfriend.
And having a very clear understanding of what the operating agreement looks like up front is critical. So when you do that, you understand that it's in writing. Now, operating agreements are only for when bad things happen. You only pull them out when something's going wrong. But if it's done right, it'll there's no arguing. Here's how we're doing this, and here's how we're breaking up.
Yeah, I actually really like that question, because a lot of our entrepreneurs and our leaders that we speak to on these town halls always bring that up, that, it's almost worse than a marriage to break up, as a business partner. Well, Val, thank you so much for leading this conversation. Just happy to see your face as always.
Yeah. And sure, one more thing, or do you have to wrap it up?
No, go ahead.
So, as I was thinking through what we're going to talk about today, one of the things that I didn't understand until I got into probably my third business was that the way you raise money, we talked about it, but not the specific issue. The way you raise money is as important, if not more so, than your business idea. So understanding your strategic fundraising and understanding how you're going to do it, because you might have the best idea in the world. If you don't have the right dollars, you're done. And if you have the right dollars, it'll allow you to pivot. And so it is as if not more important. Most entrepreneurs think about that as the secondary issue. Oh, I've got this great service and product. Okay, now I'll find the money. You kind of have to do that. It's chicken and egg. But understanding the right way to finance your company is one of the things I would share that is critically important for entrepreneurs. And we kind of talked around it, but not that specifically.
Absolutely. And, Hal, I'll ask you, I guess, do you have the recommended reading list? If you send that, I will share it with everybody that attended, as well as on Facebook.
I'll just take a picture of my bookcase.
Oh, perfect. That's yeah, that's great. Are there any other, and we did share the Catalytic Coaching, link so that people can check that out. Are there any other resources that you would suggest that early stage business owners or growth stage check out?
There's so many good things out there. There's just, it's an awesome time to be an entrepreneur because there's so many things to help. I think that's one from that perspective. I have to think about specific areas. I don't, there are some great online tools for simple stuff. I mean, frankly, just for pipeline management of sales, Pipedrive is like the best thing I've ever used. It's so easy and so simple, right? But I don't want to plug specific things just because it's a little awkward for me, but it's one like, if somebody wants to ask me like, hey, what do you use for such and such? I'd be happy to share.
Great. And Jada did share Hal's contact information, so feel free to reach out to him. We'll also put that on Facebook as well.
Email would be best if you don't mind.
Yes, the email's on there. And, and for those of you who are in need of other resources or want other support, I dropped it on Facebook. I can drop in the chat as well. Anybody feel free to schedule a time with me to chat if you're looking for resources, and I'll connect you to the right people, or somebody in our staff will, if we don't have the answers, or you can email townhall@bunkerlabs.org. Hal, Val, thank you so much. I did not mean to rhyme that, but it did.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.